Okay, we are going to take a look at how a professional programmer thinks when performing some task. And in this case, we're going to use this realistic, it's not actually real and published, but realistic code base for an app called Summerist. And never mind what it does exactly just yet, but let's just say that we're trying to get set up to see what it does. So it says, usual, don't have an account, create one now. Okay, so I tap on this, and start to put in some stuff. Foo, and some terrible password. And then I tap to sign up, but it says unknown server failure. Your request cannot be resolved. And keep saying that. Okay, so something's wrong with the server that's behind this app. But, let's say I've just opened this up. I don't, know anything about this code base yet, or this system, new to the project. So, what I can do is open up the code here and start taking a look. Now, remember what I was doing was, what I'm interested in is this whole sign up flow. I want to troubleshoot that. One way of doing that, there's several ways of beginning to tackle this problem. So for example, I could start opening these guys all up and poking around at the code file by file in some way. Let's say for now though, I want to use as a hint the fact that this view here, this screen or this view, is created by some code, and in here obviously, and in there this label must exist, sign space up, and because there's a space in there, it seems reasonable that I'll be able to just search the code base and find the label itself, which would jump me right to the view in question. So let me try that. So I'll do in VS Code Command-Shift-F will give me a project-wide search. So I'll type sign space up, and it finds a file under lib pages sign _up. And boom, there we are. I'm in the middle of, what am I in? There's a widget called signup page, and it's connected to this thing called signup page state down here, and inside signup page state is a bunch of what looks like UI widgets. So for example, here's one that's going to say the email is invalid if it's an invalid email, and so forth. And then here at the bottom of this block of UI widget code is a loading button, which presumably when you click it, it has a loading indicator like a spinner or something like that. And when you press this button, this anonymous function is called, and in here the email and password values are pulled out of the form and passed into this credentials object, which is then passed into an instance of something called a signup qubit. Okay, so we found the start point of the signup flow, and in IDEs, like smart code editors, in other words, such as VS Code, Visual Studio Code, the one we're using now, I know that I can command click my way into any object like this or references like this. So you see how I hover over it, press command, and it is underlined to indicate that I can navigate there. So I can click on it, and boom, I actually typed something by accident. I'm inside of sign _up _qubit.dart. And let's say never mind what exactly a qubit is as such, but let's see if we can keep just following the flow for now without getting sidetracked. So I assume that, because there's really no other logic in here, that this part here where it says call is the part that got past the credentials a second ago. So here, let's put these side by side so we have a better chance of not getting totally lost here. And let me also use a macro to make the, do you see what I did? This cut off here, so I wanted the text to wrap. So I used, in this case, Option Z to wrap the text so I can see all of it. Okay, so again, email and password are pulled out of the form. They're passed in as parameters, as arguments to credentials. So let me just open credentials as well and bring it down here so we can look at that too. So credentials has some gobbledygook in here. I'm going to ignore this freezed junk up here. Again, I'm just trying to concentrate on the main flow and not get too distracted. And I double check that. In fact, this constructor will take an email and a password and do something with it, and otherwise it looks like a pretty simple data class. It's just a object to hold some data for me. So that's credentials. It gets, again, passed into, I now realize it's this call function, which is not the constructor, but there's, and I'll ignore that for now too, but clearly credentials from here is where it's set up here, credentials from here is getting passed into credentials over here. So from signup page.dart, it's getting passed into signupqubit.dart, or rather the signupqubit class that's defined in that file. Okay, so first thing is we start the loading indicator, obviously. It says emit loading, that must be what that's doing. And then we try, which means that there might be an exception here, but we'll try to do this thing right here, which is the next real bit of logic. So now we're going to pass the credentials that we received further down into this thing called underscore repository, which itself is of type signup repository. All right, so that's the next thing to look at. If I command click on this, it's just going to jump me up here because that's where that's defined. So next I'll command click onto the type itself. All right, so now we are in here. I'll actually move this qubit over here. Okay. So now we're in signup repository, and once again, great, my screen time. Once again, we have this call method, which is taking the place of a constructor, I guess. And what's happening here? We pass the credentials in, and we convert the credentials to JSON format for transmission over the wire. So it's a transmission safe format, JavaScript object notation. And we're going to perform an HTTP post against this path /auth/register, just part of a URL, but that's where we're going to send this information. And so we're getting close to the network call that's failing to the server. Okay, that means we've got to figure out where we're trying to figure out where the server is, so that we can troubleshoot what's going on. So this will just jump me up to here, and we can see that what must be an HTTP client class, because it's got a post method, is of type DO, whatever DO is. And once again, I can drill in to take a look and see that DO is, okay, here's some commentary. Oh, right here. In this comment, it says a powerful HTTP client for Dart, which has these these features or whatever. That's fine. But we've confirmed that it's an HTTP client, of course, and down here we can see some examples of how to use it. So this looks like I think this is the version that we were using, right? Because it said, well, actually, no. No, I don't know which one we're using. Right. Yeah. Over here, we're just issuing the post. We're not actually setting it up. So we need to find the spot where this client instance is actually set up and given these configuration parameters, such as the base URL, which is the server we're going to hit. So earlier we had only the path, but we don't have the host. We don't know where this is going, this HTTP post request, because we're missing the full URL. So where is this DO client? And also, did we write this? Somehow doesn't look like it. So if I control click up here, it'll give me a quick view of where in the file system, file hierarchy this actually is. And I can see that we're under Flutter, this folder pub.dartlang.org, so published packages, and in there is DO 4.0. So this tells me that this is a third-party dependency, and I can confirm that by opening up the file navigator guy here and going to pubspec.yaml. I'll close that so I have more space and look in here at dependencies. And in fact, under the project dependencies, I can see DO 4.0.0 has been added, which means that when I fetch these dependencies, I'll have this pulled down locally to my laptop so that I can refer to it when I'm building this project. So yes, that's what we're using. But where is this set up? I somehow, from the outside of signup repository, someone else is setting up the client and pushing it in. So this says, this is the constructor for the class. So as the class is first getting instantiated or set up, from the outside, whoever's doing this instantiation is pushing in a usable instance of the client for me, which we then store away here and then use later here. So I need to find that setup spot. And there's nothing else for me to click here because I need to find who is referring to this. So I might be able to go to references and find, using the power of the IDE here, and see that it's mentioned. So these are just references. Where's the... this looks promising here, where class. Yeah, one of these two things, but main.dart, the main entry point, the main file where the app starts, that's actually a pretty reasonable guess as to where setup code might live. So I'm going to jump into here. All right. And I see that the signup repository is indeed being instantiated here. And here are, so the constructor function is being called with 2 arguments. And in fact, there are 2 arguments. One is the aforementioned HTTP client, and the other is this authentication preferences object. But where normally you would see variable names here for the arguments that are getting passed in, instead we have this mysterious get it call. So there's some sort of indirection being used to fetch the necessary objects from somewhere else. And right now we don't know why that is, but it's not quite as simple as we'd hoped to just find where this is being set up and therefore where the client is being instantiated, the HTTP client. We don't know yet. So if we drill into here, we will see that getIt is this instance of getIt, which you can see being imported here. And then there's some configuration or setup junk here, which doesn't really make any sense yet. We can do our magic command click guy to jump into here and see what we see. Okay, and as we saw before with the HTTP client, there's a handy comment that tells you what this thing is. It says, very simple and easy to use service locator. Well, it doesn't look super simple so far, but in any case, we know that it's a service locator. So from the word locator, we can infer that it's going to locate some objects for us, and presumably they're service objects. Let's say whatever those are for the moment, but in any case, this getIt thing will get services for us. And earlier, what do we? Let's remember what we're looking for here, so we don't lose the thread. We are looking for an HTTP client, so we can think of that as like a service for the whole app. Anybody who needs to make a call out to a third-party service, a third-party server, will use that. And so if you want to get hold of the HTTP client, you might use this service locator guy. Okay, so we've motivated the purpose of this, I guess. You register your object creation factory or an instance object with one of these guys. Register either a factory or a singleton. So a singleton is in your whole app. There's only one instance of that object. And then lazy singleton, presumably when you ask for it, it gets created. It creates itself or something like that. Lazy, hence lazy. It waits until you actually have to do the job to do it. And then you can later retrieve the desired object using get. Oh, there's a typo here. Anyway. All right, whatever. But where's my... So, okay, that's fine, but where's the instance of the object? So let me close this and pop back up to here. Yeah, this is just setup. So still there's no obvious clue. Let's look at what this thing imports and see if that gives us any hints. So this is the original getIt thing. Then there's this injectable guy, which I guess we could pop into it for a second and see. Oh, it's actually in turn exporting a few things here. getIt helper. Okay, so I'll ignore this. This is some kind of helper thing for getIt. And then what about this? So these two packages were foreign, or third party, getIt and injectable. But this summerist is us. This is actually our own code. So this is promising. Stuff that's specific to our own setup is likely to be in our own code. So let's open this guy up. Oh, it's generated code. So we didn't actually write this, and it's quite ugly with these auto-generated numeric variable names and things like that. But still, this is specific to our project. So we could take a look at this mess here and see. Aha! Look, one of these ugly variables is referring to services API client, which looks pretty promising. We should take a look at that. Next, and see. Oh, look, there's our friend Dio. That's the HTTP client library, and here's an instance. This is a new instance of Dio with its base options set such that the base URL is localhost at port 8080. So this is the answer to our question as to where the server is supposed to be running to get this to work. So sign up and then unknown server failure. Now we know what's going on. What's going on is, I'm not currently running a server. When I first launched this Flutter app inside of an iOS simulator, so it's an iPhone simulator. But in any case, I launched this just with no prep, and part of the reason for that is in the README. Sorry, where did the? Oh, I missed. In the README. Here, let me close some of these files so we have more room. And open up a markdown preview mode here. It's easier to see. This is just the boilerplate or default automatic README that's generated whenever you create a Flutter project. Clearly there's nothing in here that's specific to what we're actually doing. It just points to a couple pieces of documentation. That's it. So there's nothing in here about a server that's specific to this app. So that's why I didn't know about setting it up. For all I know, maybe it's pointed at some server in the cloud that's just waiting to talk to this app. But that's obviously not the case. So there's some other repository that's required to... Wait, oops, I closed my client. There's some other server code that needs to be running right here in order for this app to work. All right, so now I know that, and maybe somewhere in this project is a hint of where that server lives as code, but my guess is probably not. I probably should talk to this guy right here who added this quite recently, according to this GitHub aware extension that I added, or plugin that I added to VS Code. Every time I click on a line, it gives me these little hints as to what happened, how that line got there. So I'm going to talk to this guy right here and find out what I'm supposed to be running. And so I'm at the moment a little bit blocked on continuing on with my original task. But I have something to do next. And I'm going to throw the monkey of responsibility onto this guy, Lukash, here. And pick it up again tomorrow. So that was an example of a professional programmer's thought process, a professional programmer. So one way of thinking about this issue, this task of figuring out how signup works, and specifically why this debugging, why this failure is coming up. So that's it for now.